It's like a little panel. Oh, what's that?
So, Lee, I noticed that you had put down kind of the big idea that you had, kind of how the students were going to demonstrate the idea and the standards that you were looking at. Is that right, kind of what you put there?
Yeah. It's, for me, this really, those are my words, preliminary draft up there. I made sure to include that when I was writing anything. But for me, this really came out of last week. One of the notes that I made while you were talking was, you asked the question, but one way to come at this is to think about what is the most important thing that you teach. And thinking in terms of teaching digital arts at Gila, I'm really redefining the focus of my classes to be communications. I teach communication. So when I ask myself, just so you know what's on my mind, I think that this is going to be difficult for me to do. But there are other things that I teach that are a lot easier, I think, to make goals about and to assess. And the reason that I came up with this was because for me it's the answer to the most important thing I teach: media literacy. And
so if you thought about at the end of this year and students walked out of the course, what is the bottom line that you want to say, without any questions, they got to come out with this? What is the thing that you really want them to come out with?
It's tough to say one thing. But
a set of things.
Yeah, for me it's all about improving communication skills.
Okay.
So the way I'm kind of structuring my classes this year is on the ideas of visual, written, and verbal communication are the three things that we're really working on.
Okay.
In my class.
Okay. And so if they have those skills, if they have those basic skills in there, you go, okay, I did my job this year. Okay. All right. So I want to kind of walk through kind of then thinking about is, and that idea of setting that goal that's what really matters to you as a teacher really is where we have to live. Not really in the place where, well, let's just get us something done here so I check it off the box. If we're going to have this authentic way, let's do the things you're all passionate about. So I'm going to try to see if I can put kind of a sentence structure to all these ideas down here, and you can tell me whether I got it right or not. So one of the things that we talked about was kind of those action verbs. And so if you thought and looked at where you were, what are the action verbs that are the most important thing for your kids?
Well, I want to make sure that the reading thing up there is not necessarily, just so that we're all on the same page, that's not necessarily about reading words. It's kind of about reading media, reading photographs, reading video. It's meant to be kind of a media literacy term.
Okay.
Not necessarily according to specific to a written word. But it's definitely analyzing would definitely be in there. Analyzing and communicating are probably big action words. Creating is another one. I don't want to jump forward to the assessments, but part of the assessment for this is going to be a product. Deconstruct might be one. Interpret.
Okay, let's hang on that for just a second. Excuse me, it's my spelling errors. The next piece that I want you to think about is, I looked at the standards, and the first thing that drew to me was that you wanted them to analyze, create, deconstruct, evaluate visual information. Am I seeing that right? Or am I? Okay. tell me, like, as the year goes along, they're gonna analyze, create, deconstruct, interpret. What skills are they going to be doing? Like, I see reading is one thing. They're gonna be reading. What else are they gonna be doing with all this media and all this?
Yeah, so they're going to be reading, and they're going to be critiquing. They're going to be interpreting intent. They're going to be like forecasting the consequences, I guess, of the media. And they're going to be using the stuff that they learn to create their own stuff, to communicate purposefully, to communicate with intent. They're going to be learning a vocabulary. You know, part of all this is that they're going to be learning a vocabulary that they're not familiar with.
And they're gonna need to have that vocabulary to effectively communicate, and they're gonna need the vocabulary to effectively read, in whatever form read takes on.
True.
Some sort of media literacy. And I said, because the big thing was to communicate with intent about media. Tell me more about what media means.
So this was, and I don't know, this might have been a misstep, but I'm working with both photography and yearbook and multimedia, which includes video and written word. And that's one of my worries about this. What's up here is that it might be a little broad, because the word media is broad and can apply to all those things.
Yeah.
So this, you know, I use the word media because that's something that I could apply to all the, you know, that's a goal that I could apply to all of the classes that I teach. And I'm not sure if that's a little much.
So let's think about the first semester, this semester.
In photo class, it would be photographs. And multimedia, it would be multiple media. So yeah, you'd be talking about non-fiction, you know, presumably non-fiction writing, photographs as well, audio, including podcasts, video, including documentary film.
Anything else? Just like I said, let's bring this down to a chunk that kind of goes, okay, I kind of get that. Is that one of those things you're thinking about for this first semester? Okay, great. So let me go back to, in essence, right now.
You know, my instinct is to, in order to preserve my sanity, is to make this specific, you know, photo one is our baseline, our introductory digital arts course,
Okay.
really. And my instinct is, you know, to make the goal specific
The photo one.
to those guys.
Okay.
Which would make the media specific to photographs.
Okay. Is there anything specific about, is it just photographs, or do you think about photographs in, I mean, what, a little bit more, like, do you have different ways of thinking about the photographs? How do you think about it? Is there something like, you know?
Sure.
Tell me more about that.
But as far as the media that we are really analyzing, creating, deconstructing, and interpreting in Photo 1 class, it's specific to photographs.
Okay.
And that's intentional, because if you had multimedia, the multimedia class is a capstone class, because if you took a freshman in high school and you threw them into the creating, deconstructing, interpreting of multimedia, their heads would explode. You know?
So, tell me a little bit more about like kind of your course, how it unwraps. Do you have units of instruction in terms of photography?
Yeah.
What are those units?
So we start weekly units that are all dedicated towards building the vocabulary. vocabulary.
Okay.
And the vocabulary is basically, it's based on universal artistic elements and principles.
What are those artistic elements and principles?
Yeah, so you've got things like emphasis, repetition, texture, balance, line, form.
Don't laugh at that. Okay. What were those things called again?
Artistic principles.
And are you going to be, so I want to come back to this, you're going to analyze, create, deconstruct, interpret visual information by reading, critiquing, interpreting, communicating the intent about the artistic principles in each one of those units, or no?
Yeah, so what it is that, I mean, the big picture is that it's a process of students realizing that the information they receive has been constructed,
Mm-hmm.
and that in order to communicate successfully, they are going to need to construct that communication. That good communication doesn't typically happen by accident. So a lot of this is like learning that each one of these principles is a building block
Mm-hmm.
that makes up all media,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to make up their media. So it's like these are tools, communication tools.
Okay. That is probably one of, without all my spelling errors, that is probably one of the best learning focuses I've ever seen.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
You win.
Because it incorporates the key important thing